Well, good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar, Navigating Risk and Compliance in the Mining Industry, led by our guest, Pam Saxton. My name is Bryce Elliott. I'm an SVP of Operations for Damstra Technology, and I'll be moderating today's session. And to help me, if throughout the presentation you have any questions for Pam, please enter them into the chat box, and I'll serve them up after her prepared material. Thank you. We are pleased to have Pam Saxton with us today. Pam has 35 plus years of executive experience in both public and private corporations in the technology, financial services, and mining industries. Pam has held a variety of roles in those companies, including controller, chief accounting officer, and chief financial officer. And today she's a member of the board of directors of three corporations: Aquila Resources, Bunker Hill Mining, and Timberline Resources. Pam brings a wealth of operational expertise to this discussion. Thank you for joining us, Pam, and welcome to the event.
Great, thank you, Bryce. And thanks to each of you that have joined us today. I'm going to be covering material from various sources as well as from my own experience. You need to know that I am very passionate about the mining industry, and in particular, safety. As a CFO, the training and experience that I've had in safety has forever changed my life, as safety is always top of my mind in my everyday life. I joined the Damstra North American Advisory Board primarily due to their focus of digitizing and automating key processes. I certainly, through my career, have experienced wading through reams of data in unconnected Excel spreadsheets, satellite systems that resulted in errors, untimely results, and frankly, delayed action plans. With the mining industry now rapidly changing to meet the demand, utilizing technology is more important than ever. I love Damstra's tagline, "We connect plus protect your world, safe people, places, and things." That certainly resonates with me. So, opportunities in the mining industry are greater than the risks. We are mining our green future. Green energy revolution is very reliant on raw materials, including cobalt and lithium. Mining companies must carefully balance the need to mine with now the requirement to tackle long-term environment issues and social governance. Outside pressures are demanding that outcomes are beneficial for both the people and our planet. People-centered innovation and change will be the key to successfully implementing improvements. So in late 2021, Ernst & Young surveyed global mining executives regarding the future risks and opportunities for the mining sector, with the majority of the respondents from the C-suite. And as you see on this chart here, there's the top three: environmental, decarbonization, and license to operate. It's really interesting to me, in past years, license to operate has always been at the top of the chart, and now that's been replaced with environmental, social, and decarbonization. Environmental and social is the #1 risk. To access the rapidly growing pool of capital available for strong environmental, social, and governance performers, known as ESG, mining companies must demonstrate a sustainable future. The cost of capital can be 20 to 25% higher for those mining companies with the lowest ESG scores. According to McKinsey & Company, the mining industry contributes 2 to 3% of CO2 emissions, coming from three broad sources: emissions from diesel, emissions from non-renewable electricity generation, and emissions from supply chain and transport. Decarbonization can be accomplished through a combination of solutions, including liquid sustainable fuels, a shift in drivetrains with both hydrogen fuel cells and battery electric vehicles, and switching to a green source of electricity. One of the boards that I'm serving on right now has a feasibility study underway for using waste to generate electricity. And they have set themselves some goals to reduce their CO2 emissions by 50,000 metric tons per year. It's very important that you integrate decarbonization into your operating strategy as necessary. However, you do need to set realistic targets, and you need to be very transparent, sharing your roadmap and successes as you move along the way. The key aspects of ESG is first to develop and implement various ESG policies, which include environmental, operational health and safety, social performance, ethics and corporate governance, anti-corruption, human resources, labor and decent work, the abolition of child and forced labor, security, and human rights. As part of ESG, you need to implement an effective environmental management system, or known as EMS. That environmental management system should include integrated procedures and processes for training your workforce and monitoring, summarizing, and reporting of environmental performance information to both internal and external stakeholders. The EMS system, if you go to the next slide, follows a plan, do, check, act model, which most of you are familiar with for continual improvement. Again, that EMS system will probably include mitigation and management measures, environmental objectives and targets, legislative and good international industry practice compliance, mine rehabilitation objectives, measures, and targets, training and supervision to all employees, contractors, and business partners, reporting incidents with appropriate corrective actions, and then measuring and monitoring the effectiveness of performance. Now we move on to license to operate, shared value. License to operate is demonstrating shared value to a broad group of stakeholders, which can result in a competitive edge in the fight for capital and new resources. In 2011, the shared value concept was first introduced in a Harvard Business Review article. In the article, Professor Michael Porter defined shared value as policies and operating practices that enhance the competitiveness of a company while simultaneously advancing the economic and social conditions in the communities in which it operates. So your license to operate most certainly will include community engagement and collaboration. Here you need to establish long-term relationships with a broad range of stakeholders in and around the areas where we invest and work. This means meaningful engagement to understand the priorities, concerns, and needs of the local community, including people of color and Indigenous heritage. I also think about community engagement as creating your brand. You need to think critically about the corporate brand, considering potential conflicts with internal or external stakeholders and what potential remedies there might be. Creating long-term value for communities beyond the life of mine, including tailings dam safety. Long gone are the days when you mine, you close the mine, and you move on. You need to think about the whole long-term value for communities after you're gone. Occupational health and safety, for me, is a critical compliance area. According to the American Society of Safety Engineers, every $1 spent on accident prevention yields $3 to $6 in loss avoidance. A robust safety program that becomes integral to your operating activities will build a culture of trust and give you the social capital to innovate and implement change. If I could give you a little of my own experience on this, when I was the CFO of Thompson Creek, we had a new CEO that came in and he implemented a new safety program across the organization. While each site had a safety program, This new safety program was consistent across all of our sites. This particular program was a behavioral-based safety program. Safety was conducted at all of our sites, including corporate personnel. We had safety operations at each of our sites, and those were performed by site employees, but they also were performed by executives, the operations leadership team, site personnel, and also site personnel from other sites. Initially, when we had started this program, the employees were skeptical and worried there was going to be something punitive coming out of it. But as the program continued, it became very clear to everyone that the leadership team was very passionate about making sure that every employee went home safe every day. And I have to tell you that the result was amazing in what we experienced. This program opened up communication lines and trust between the executives, the site leadership teams, and all site personnel. Certainly when we had these observations, we would have discussions with various groups about what was working well and what wasn't working well. And then they expanded into discussions not only about safety, but about operational matters as well. And these discussions spurred problem solving, innovation, change, and improving safety across all of our sites. Through this experience that I had, I believe your safety program could be a catalyst for you and give you the social license and trust to innovate and implement change. Contractor management is another key risk area. Contractors are essentially an extension of your workforce, and they must be properly managed, onboarded, inducted, trained, and tracked with regards to your various policies and procedures to ensure that you're in compliance. It would be really a travesty if you had a contractor on site that for some reason caused you a compliance issue or even temporarily shutting down your site. So that is a very important area. The other items listed here, ethics and corporate governance, cultural heritage management, purchasing and procurement, asset management, and emergency preparedness and response. Workforce. With the COVID-19 pandemic disruption, there's been a major factor for the adoption of technology within the mining industry. Miners are taking a new and accelerated approach to workforce management. Now, including digital solutions to help you track and schedule each worker according to skills, tickets, and licenses, so you always have the right people on the right job at the right time in order to increase productivity. Most importantly, managing your workforce requires that you have to get the culture right, a more constructive and effective culture that rewards collaboration and encourages people to work together. Training is now, you can do it online, digital apprenticeships, continuous training in digital platforms, and the use of artificial intelligence for new skills development. Digital equipment is not only improving the overall safety productivity, but is also reducing maintenance and downtime. Again, building a working environment based on trust that appeals to a new and more diverse workforce will accelerate workforce diversity. Also, different working models continue, which include job sharing and hybrid working models. Digital and innovation. Again, miners are accelerating their investment in digital tools and technology to better address the ESG priorities and transform key aspects of mining. Research shows that a digital workforce management solution can increase the average revenue per full-time employee by 4 times compared to organizations with no automated solution. Additionally, a real-time data and digital analytics tool can return on average $13 for every $1 spent on analytics, extracting more insights from data which result in making better decisions, improving scenario planning, building agility, and being able to respond to volatility. Digital technologies are also transforming work by building a better understanding of the resource base, optimizing material and equipment flow, improving anticipation of failures, including mechanization through automation, and monitoring performance in real time. A great example of this is the Freeport-McMoRan's Baghdad mine in Arizona, where they had been processing declining ore grades as its reserves of higher grade ore had been depleted for some time. Freeport began to work on finding new process changes that would increase Baghdad's copper output without a massive capital injection. Very interestingly, Freeport built a machine learning model to check whether the mill truly was running as efficiently as they thought it was. And what they learned was that in actuality, they were producing 7 distinct types of ore when they thought there was only one. Additionally, the mill's control settings did not match the properties of all those ore types. This learning opened up many new possibilities for improving performance. The team at Baghdad built an AI model that would look at the ore coming into the mill and set control settings to heighten production of copper from that ore by 10% or more. It's really kind of a fascinating case study, and you can certainly look it up, and it's certainly an example of how digital technologies and AI can help with the improvement of your operations. Also, as I mentioned before, data and digital tools can improve on-site safety in multiple ways. For example, electronic health and safety checklists, incident reporting, and safety training. Also, forming collaborations and alliances with technology companies and data management companies enables you to develop and implement new digital solutions directly for your company. Geopolitical, and I think about this as relationships, relationships, relationships. Geopolitical risk has increased significantly, resulting from shifting policies and regulations surrounding climate change, the COVID pandemic, and the Russian-Ukraine conflict. Mitigating those risks might include, I think you should regularly do a SWOT analysis to identify potential political risks, assessing the likely impact of those risks, and integrating them into a broader strategic plan. I also think it's helpful to create consensus across the leadership team, and such a consensus can create a set of guiding principles grounded in a shared set of priorities when risk scenarios play out. Engage with stakeholders, including business political leaders, government agencies, and non-government organizations in order to form relationships and partnerships and gain insight and influence into potential regulatory actions or sanctions that could affect your organization. I'll give you a couple of potential opportunities here in the US for the mining industry. I read yesterday that the US Senate Energy Committee is currently examining the feasibility of building domestic supply chains for crucial minerals that will determine whether the environmental electrification goals for the US will be met. Another example, 2 senators from Idaho and New Mexico have introduced legislation to make it easier for Good Samaritans to clean up and improve water quality in and around abandoned hard rock mines. Many of these abandoned hard rock mines have remaining minerals that can be mined during the cleanup effort and will be mutually beneficial to the mining companies, the community, and the government's green initiative. These 2 legislative initiatives provide a great opportunity for mining companies to investigate government incentives or co-investment opportunities to fast-track innovation and decarbonization. Also, you should work with trade and industry groups to help influence future taxation and policies. And also always build and map supply chain, making sure that your inbound and outbound flow of products and building a more reliable supply chain for the future. Rising costs and productivity. Today, as all of you know, we're faced with higher input costs and supply chain disruption, decarbonizing our operations, and an escalating skills shortage that is increasing the cost of recruitment and retaining talent. Managing variability in costs and productivity is critical, and reducing costs is always a part of any productivity improvement strategy. We should ensure that cost reduction measures increase long-term value, are sustainable, and do not have a negative impact on our license to operate. A sampling of areas to focus on: analyze exactly where value comes from and define the operating model that will enable it. Clearly demonstrate the benefit and the value that that change creates. Again, people-centered innovations and change will be the key to successfully implementing productivity improvements. Also, people working with technology to manage process improvements will aid in managing change, driving efficiency, and transforming the business. In all cases, ensure pain points are not simply moved to another part of the business. That is something that we used to always refer to as the whack-a-mole game, where you knock down one problem and another one pops up. You should take an all-inclusive approach. Again, change management will be integral to boosting productivity. There's really no point in buying a fleet of automated haulage trucks if the workers are resistant or uncertain in terms of using them. Again, communication and collaboration across the business, a commitment to breaking down silos and improving workforce diversity will help unlock innovation. Also, you need to factor in learning and training always to create a continuous improvement in the future. In summary, the opportunities are greater than the risks in 2022. The green movement, or mining our green future, is heavily dependent on raw materials. Long-term value and sustainability have become business as usual. And with stakeholder and capital market pressures with ESG will continue to influence risks and opportunities and drive accountability. And last but not least, people-centered innovations and change will be the key to successfully implementing improvements. Again, as I've mentioned before, I believe that a well-executed workforce safety program will give you the social license and trust to successfully implement your desired innovation and change. So at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments from anyone.
Well, thank you, Pam. Bryce Elliott here again. I do have a few questions that people have put into the chat box, and I'll start with this one. From your point of view, are you seeing mining organizations starting to implement more formal change management functions focused on improving the operational efficiency of their people, processes, policies, and of course, technology to support its institutionalization?
Yeah, very, very good question. That's a very interesting question. I certainly believe that more mining companies are implementing formal change management functions, especially the larger companies, and especially given how the mining companies are rapidly changing given the green movement. I do recall a survey. There was a research study survey that was done in 2021 with mining company employees, both operational and support staff that were surveyed. And the findings of that study revealed that the majority of the respondents in this survey felt that their formal change management system would make the change stick, as they put it, if I remember. Additionally, the finding revealed that respondents believe that the higher the mining company managers used the change readiness factors, the more likely the change initiatives would succeed. So I certainly believe that, especially with what's going on in the mining industry, it's pretty critical to embrace formal change management functions in your company.
Thank you, Pam. Great answer there, and it's very consistent with what we're seeing in the market as well. The next question is around implementing the shared value model that you discussed earlier in the presentation. And they were asking, how were you able to implement it across so many different and sometimes competing stakeholders inside and outside your organization?
Yeah, another very good question. On one of the boards that I serve on, they are in the process of restarting, regenerating, and optimized a closed mine in Idaho. The mine happens to be on a Superfund site, and there is a central water treatment plant being operated by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The company has worked tirelessly developing and nurturing relationships with the EPA, but also with the local EPA, the state government officials, both at the local level and the state level, together with both mining and non-mining businesses to increase commercial investments in the vicinity of the mine site. Interestingly enough, they have the governor of Idaho that is coming to their site to do a fundraising event for additional housing in their mining community, which is pretty exciting. The company also has taken what I think about as an impact-focused approach to the community by cleaning up the water that's coming out of the mine. They've actually created a section on their website to give stakeholders and anyone interested the opportunity to view in its real time the current water quality of the effluent leaving the mine compared to historical water quality in and around the mine. This enables the community to see how the water quality is changing over time and the positive impact the company is making to the community. It's really, it's amazing what this company is doing, and they're on all fronts. Again, comes back down to relationships. The other interesting thing that they are doing, this is an underground mine, and right above them is a ski area. And so they're looking at the potential, once they get the water cleaned up, of having that water be used for snowmaking at this ski area. So just a lot of innovation and thinking long-term about the community of how do we, once the mine is done, leaving a kind of a legacy there, a positive legacy for the community.
Thank you. That's very interesting. The next question is, in the mining organizations that you've been involved with, both from an operating and board position point of view, it looks like most of the companies you're involved with either have or plan to implement an enterprise ESG platform of some sort. And the question is really, what are the key drivers for doing so?
Yeah, another good question. Again, on one of the boards that I'm serving, they certainly are formulating an enterprise ESG platform. And for them, there's three main drivers. The sustainable production of green metals while protecting the water quality and water supply. Number two is to generate renewable energy for their mining operations as well as the community. And thirdly is just community development for new living spaces, modern retail, entertainment, hotel, golf, and other recreational activities.
Got it. Well, we have one more question that's been entered in, and this one's around contractors. Its question reads, individual contributors from contractor companies held to the same level of compliance to standards as the companies themselves? In other words, is individual adherence for contractor workers important to the company operating executives?
Oh, the answer to that is definitely yes. As I mentioned in the presentation, contractors are essentially an extension of your workforce, and they must be properly onboarded, inducted, trained, tracked, and managed with regards to all your policies and procedures, and make sure you're in compliance. When you, here in the US in particular, you're always walking a fine line with contractors because you don't want them to become employees from a taxing standpoint. But I think you still can do it that as they come on site, they have to adhere and be trained on your policies and procedures so that they don't cause you a compliance issue. This is really a big one. And you certainly are walking a fine line. Again, on one of the boards that I serve, we just did a contract with some contractors that are going to be on site, and we physically put into the contract that all of the employees on site had to be properly trained and conversant in the policies and procedures of the site. Any other questions?
Well, we have one last one that just came in, and I think it was stimulated by the one prior to this, which is, can you speak more about the risk navigation tactics?
Okay, risk. As you know, with your SWOT analysis, risks can also be opportunities. So you always have to, as you're assessing your risks, figure out how big are those risks and can they be turned into opportunities. That's it sounds easy, but certainly as you work through the process and identify those key risks, those are the things that you have to address and hopefully can turn into an opportunity or mitigate those risks.
That too is pretty consistent with what we're seeing, not only in the mining industry, but any industry where you're trying to manage risk. What gets measured is what gets managed. And so
Exactly.
deep way of capturing all of the risk that is happening on your site, without knowing that it exists, it's very difficult to tactically address it. So thank you for that.
Great.
Well, there's no more questions, so I'd like to thank everyone for attending our webinar today, and a special thank you to you, Pam, for sharing your insights around improving operational and financial performance in the mining industry, which is certainly relevant in any highly regulated industry. So with that, everyone, please enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.